You're listening to Enzy Unlimited, where we discuss all things performance. Each week, we'll bring you sharp and engaging episodes covering all things sports science and sports nutrition. This will help you fuel up and train smarter. Tune in for actionable insights that will keep you at the top of your game.
Enzy Unlimited is proud to be powered by TeamBuildr.
TeamBuildr is the software for performance coaches around the world. Their powerhouse software increases efficiency, saves paper, and can handle any type of programming. It is the perfect fit for performance facilities and remote performance coaching. TeamBuildr is full of tools that performance coaches need, allowing them to create and sell programs online, provide nutrition information through PDF documents, and gather wellness questionnaire data to stay on top of how their athletes are feeling. It contains multiple tracking methods, 16 plus reports, evaluation testing, and goal setting, just to name a few. Head to teambuildr.com and sign up with your code ENZY to start your 14-day free trial.
Welcome back to episode 5 of Enzy Unlimited. Today I'm here with my co-host Nick, and we'll be talking about maximising the off-season and utilising our integrated performance coaching. So today we want to go over why it is so important for team sports athletes to have a good off-season and how you can maximise your performance by combining a structured strength and conditioning program with performance nutrition. So Nick, why don't you tell us why having a structured strength and conditioning program is so important for athletes in the off season?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks everyone for listening in again. As Em said, off season, a structured off season it's a super important time for an athlete, especially a team athlete that plays a long season or plays multiple times throughout the season. One of the things that we really have to take into consideration during the season from a physical standpoint is fatigue management and managing that fatigue from a game day perspective backwards. So on a weekly basis, everything that we do is structured as game day being the highest exposure to a bunch of qualities that we're going to get throughout the week. And then we look to backfill those qualities from the game day backwards. So that's going to be everything from speed, agility, endurance, ground contact times, everything really from a physical standpoint. During an off season, during that season, because of the fatigue and the chaotic nature of the game day, what we really look to do throughout this time is maintain a level of physical qualities, or a standard, you could say, that's going to carry us through the season and allow us to play every week and express the qualities that we need to express on a weekly basis. Coming into the off season, the beauty of an off season period is that game day exposure is taken out of the equation, and with it leaves a lot of fatigue. So what we can do then is we can have a lot more exposure to the training stimulus that we need that's going to cause the adaptation that we're looking for. So during this off season, we can structure a strength program, a speed program, predominantly, where we get a lot more exposures without compromising the athletes for the game day, because there is no game day. So what that looks like is we might put more of an emphasis on building a really big base. And I've spoken about in previous episodes and a lot actually on our physical qualities being organized in a pyramid type manner, where the bottom of the pyramid makes up a nice broad base of general physical qualities. And that's going to be what we work on in the off season. And I like to make the analogy of the broader the base that you build, the taller the peak that you can build on top of that base. So if you think of the base being the general physical qualities of strength, speed, agility, and endurance, the more that we can build that base out, as it gets closer and closer to the end of the off-season, the start of pre-season, and then we move towards the end of pre-season, the trial match period, and into the season, we can taper that base of physical qualities up towards a peak of more specific, sport-specific physical qualities that are going to transfer over from the gym environment where we spend most of our time in the preseason or the off-season and bridge that gap to the field. Okay, I'm going to speak about how we bridge that gap a little bit more in depth on future episodes. But realistically, what we're going to do in the off season is we're going to spend a lot more time building a base of strength. A base of speed work's going to be a big one because we can get a lot more exposure to speed work during the off season without the hundreds of ground contacts that we're going to get during the day that we need to manage from a fatigue standpoint. And I think it's really a strong point that I want to make is that having a structured off season and not necessarily just using this time away from the game to quote unquote rest is important. And such is the importance of this time. We're now seeing representative professional players or professional players within their sport giving up the opportunity to play representative games for their state and their country during this time so that they can go back and spend that time working on these physical qualities so that they're able to start the season with a much broader base to build that peak from. And then when we do see that, what we see is most of the time, these players come back to their teams in a much better position. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they have a bigger engine. They're ready to start the preseason in a better spot. If you start in a better spot, you finish in a better spot. And then if you're finishing preseason, bigger, faster, and stronger than your competitors, chances are you're likely going to express that during the game. And that's when it matters. That's when you get the recognition for the work that you actually done 3, 4, 5 months prior in the off season when everyone else was taking a break.
Yeah, absolutely. So in other words, if you want to have a better season, athletes really need to be focusing on their off-season training.
Yeah, I mean, we always, you grow up hearing this saying of, summer bodies are made in the winter. And I guess it's kind of like the same, sort of saying is like, you can't just rock up to the season and expect to have a great one if you haven't done the work prior to the season starting. And that actually does start in the off season. You don't want to be that guy or girl rocking up to preseason with your team already behind the 8 ball, because then what you're doing is you're spending your preseason getting back to a baseline level instead of actually starting at that baseline or a higher baseline and using the preseason to elevate yourself from a skill perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes so much sense, even though I absolutely despise the saying, summer bodies are made in the winter. But, it goes, I guess, with everything. It takes time to get the results that you want, and you have to put in the work, and it's just a compounding efforts over time that gets you the results that you want. And we can utilize that same kind of theory in terms of nutrition as well. So when we think about performance nutrition in the off season, we really want to make sure that athletes are giving themselves a competitive advantage and building new habits long before preseason starts and long before the season starts as well. So if we can take the time to build new habits and new routine, because it does take a period of time to really facilitate that behavior change, we can really get better results in that off season as well, because we're fueling the training where it really matters. And I think this is something that I've seen a lot working with powerlifters as well. And I know we're not talking about powerlifters today, but during that time frame, we see a lot of the base strength built, and then they can express that on the platform or during their prep as well. And I think athletes from any sport really need to realize that it is not just your prep or your season where the magic happens, it's the base work that you do outside of that. So when it comes to nutrition in your off season, one of the things that we really want to take into consideration is potentially your energy intake, because your training intensity might not be as significant, not having those games every week and not having, your training or your skill sessions with all of your strength and conditioning combined in. So that's one thing that we might want to take into consideration, especially if during that off season you need to be working on some body composition changes as well. So this is actually something that Nick and I potentially argue about quite often, is, what makes a better athlete? Is it body composition? Is it, being a little bit leaner to be faster, or is it being a well-fueled athlete? And at the end of the day, I think both of them play an important role. It just really depends on the context and the individual. So having a better body composition isn't necessarily going to make you a better athlete, especially if you're under-fueled, but there may be some circumstances where it does give you a little bit of a competitive edge. So this is probably the time to consider if you need to build muscle, if you need to be a little bit leaner, like what does that look like for you? And having a strategy and an approach that will allow you to achieve that goal without jeopardizing your health, your energy levels, your performance, your relationship with food, and so forth. So this is when we really want to create those new habits and routines to achieve that goal, but also build that momentum into the into the pre-season and the season as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess you're really highlighting the fact that training and nutrition are going to play a huge role in, almost everything that we do, but certainly during this off-season period as well, where we're not necessarily only trying to maintain these qualities, we're actually trying to build upon them and make some positive adaptations in whatever kind of category we're trying to make those adaptations in. So during this time, we're going to have potentially, a lot more exposure to heavy strength training, some dynamic work to transfer that over into some sport-specific explosive movements. We're going to have more speed exposures on the field to really dose in some speed work and to work on the agility and change of direction stuff that we can't necessarily do a lot of in season. So given the fact that athletes during this time, even though they're not playing games, potentially doing some really high stimulus type training, what are some maybe specific pre-workout nutrition tips that an athlete can use during an off season that could help fuel these sessions and put them in the optimal energy availability to achieve the results that we're looking for?
So in terms of the pre-workout nutrition, regardless of what phase that you're in, it's all going to pretty much maintain the same in terms of carbohydrates and having your easily digestible carbohydrates about 30 minutes pre-workout as your primer, and then looking at the meal, 1 to 2 hours prior, having a little bit more substantial amount of carbohydrates, tapering down your fats and fiber. But one thing that we really can focus on during our pre-workout nutrition in the off season is starting to train the gut and trial different kinds of carbohydrates or different kinds of simple carbohydrates that can benefit the players in their season, so during games and so forth. So essentially taking this time to train the gut to handle more of your easily digestible simple carbohydrates. So a lot of pushback that I get from athletes, especially team sports athletes, is I don't want to eat carbohydrates before I play. I'm going to feel sick. I'm going to feel like I'm going to spew, etc., etc. But the thing is, the gut is highly adaptable. So we can actually train the gut to handle a larger amount of carbohydrates and minimize any gastrointestinal distress and discomfort. So it also comes down to the kind of carbohydrate that you eat. So if you're eating, a really large bowl of brown rice that's got a lot of dietary fiber in there, yes, you're going to feel sick as you run. If you've never eaten before you've ran out onto the field before, you may feel a little bit sick, even if you're just having something simple. So we can utilize a strategy where we're going to build up a tolerance. So even if you just start really simple, say with half a banana during your first off-season training session, see how you feel, see your energy levels, see how that plays out. Do you feel sick? Do you get a stitch? Okay, you felt good, we can build up. And then over time, we can kind of build up to that top end of the tolerance, which is around 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. And this is also going to help transfer over into halftime as well, when we can refuel our athletes with more carbohydrates before they don't even have that 30 minutes for them to digest in that period of time. So we can train the gut to handle more carbohydrates directly before heading onto the field, and more fluid as well to ensure that the players are hydrated. So essentially, it's a really great time to train the gut and ensure that we can minimize any of that gastrointestinal distress and discomfort that players may be worried about just before running onto the field.
Awesome. And then again, to the same point, that there's going to be obviously a bunch of training that we're wanting to do here. There's going to be players that are wanting to build size, strength. Nutrition plays a huge role in that. They're going to be spending a bunch of time in the gym, ideally during this off-season period. What are some post-session tips that we can do for nutrition to optimize the results that we're looking for in the gym and then also recovery?
So post-session, we really want to be focusing on rehydrating, so adequate fluid intake so we can reverse any dehydration that may have happened, replenish sodium as well to help with that rehydration. We want to repair with protein. We want to refuel with carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are actually just as important post-workout as your protein. So carbohydrates, we're going to replenish our glycogen, and they're also protein sparing as well. So if you are not focusing on your daily carbohydrate, you are missing out on gains, because not only do you not have the energy in your session, but our body can convert non-carbohydrate substrates, so fuel sources, into carbohydrates. So that could come from protein, from dietary protein or muscle as well. So essentially, if you really do want to build muscle and make gains, number one, your daily energy intake, but also focusing on your pre and post workout nutrition to ensure that you have the energy to push your training sessions and then also recover.
Beautiful. Is there any supplements that athletes should be looking to take during this time as well, that can kind of add as a little bit of a building block on top of that foundation of nutrition that we're speaking about?
Absolutely. So supplements, these are our 1%ers. So I'll give you the top 3 supplements that I recommend for team sports. So number 1 is your creatine. So this is really important for aiding in ATP production, so your energy production while you train, enhancing strength, power, and also the capacity for high intensity exercise. But what's really cool about creatine for team sports or high impact sports is that it can actually, it shows benefits for improving brain function and recovering from traumatic brain injury and concussions by protecting against nerve damage and inflammation. So that's a really important one, especially for footy. Caffeine, that's going to help just with performance and helping you feel more alert. And then one thing that I would recommend to trial and test in the off season, now this isn't an evidence-based supplement, but we do see a lot of positive feedback from athletes. It doesn't work for everyone, but some athletes do report positive feedback in terms of cramping, and this is pickle juice. So there's a few things that we can do in terms of cramps. I'll go into this a little bit more deeper into a future episode, but generally in the off season, it's worth trialing and testing to see if it's worth your money, because it might not be, but it might. Yeah,
awesome. Wow, really, really solid wrap up there of what an off season can look like from a physical perspective, and then also a nutrition perspective to help fuel and recover from those sessions. So just to quickly wrap it up for everyone there, where during this off season is essentially a free period away from gameplay, where we can really look to maximize the exposures that we get in a gym setting, in a speed setting. And we can really start to get you faster, to get you bigger, to get you stronger. We're going to do that by adding in a structured gym program. We're going to do that by adding in structured speed exposures, both acceleration, run mechanics, maximum velocity exposures throughout the week. We're going to obviously want to look to fuel those sessions, to recover from those sessions, and to add in some testing and trialing things from a nutrition standpoint to make sure that when the season does come, we're able to implement these strategies. We've trained the gut to handle those things. And I think that kind of wraps it up pretty nicely. If anyone would like more performance tips, or if you enjoy these performance tips, make sure that you follow both Em and myself on Instagram, and Enzy Athletics on Instagram as well. And if you would like more of a personalized, structured approach to your off season, reach out to us and we can book a complimentary consult with yourself to go over your specific situation and build out a structured off season for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening, guys. And if you do want us to go into any further details on these topics in a future episode, just let us know in the comments section.
Reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave us a positive review or a comment, and share to your socials and tag us.
Your support means the world to us, and showing your support through these actions really helps us grow. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.